Yeah, we did.
1985 film.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's my go-to. That's my comfort movie.
And you know what? It's not only a good comfort movie because I feel the same way about it, but the script, like as a screenplay, it's one of the best scripts. Like if you just read the script, certainly when you know the movie, you get a different look at it. Like you remember the beginning of the movie, it just starts, I think, in Doc Brown's house, and
Right.
you see Marty's feet walking, and the camera just does this slow zoom across everything, and you learn everything you need to know about the movie in the first couple minutes. You hear the news report that the Libyans or someone has taken plutonium or whatever it is they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know that's missing. You see a skateboard happen. You see everything you need to know in the first 2 minutes, and there's no characters yet. So script wise, I'm geeking out right now, but it's like even a fucking great script.
Yeah, I used to love watching seeing all the different. He used to have different clocks and stuff, and you could hear like the clicking and the ticking of the clocks and stuff, and that would always, kind of, it's like got that time thing, right? So like just little things like that I loved, and it's fun. Like I said, it's a comfort movie for me, and yeah, it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of my favorites. We watched that with the family a lot. It's one of those movies.
Agreed.
Yeah. So welcome
to the pod, man.
And the year was 1985.
Yeah, it's a cool title. It's a cool. I listened to a couple episodes since we've connected online, and I'm happy to be here, man. Like I know podcasts are a lot of work. Believe me, I know. So you guys thought enough of me to want to have me on. That means a lot, and it's a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, I mean we're longtime fans. Like
yeah,
we go back late '90s kind of thing, like bucket truck era. We've seen you perform. We've seen you perform a few times in the old Bishop's Falls and stuff like that, right? So yeah,
wow.
So you go back a long ways.
Is that where you guys are from? That part of Newfoundland?
Yeah, we both grew up together in Bishop Falls.
Yeah, Central Newfoundland.
Right on, and you're out west now.
Yeah, we both live in Grand Prairie.
Yeah,
you miss home?
I miss parts of it. Like I like St. John's. Like I like downtown St. John's kind of thing, and like I miss that. You don't get that. I mean, you're not going to get that in Grand Prairie, no matter what. Yeah. So, but yeah, like I miss that stuff, and like I mean, my parents and stuff are there. Like I miss my parents and like the cabin and that kind of stuff. But I really like it here. Like I mean, there's a lot of us here too. Like there's definitely enough of us here to make it feel like home. So that helps too, I guess.
Yeah, like my family, my whole family lived here up until this summer. Actually, my parents actually just moved back home to Bishop's Falls, so I'm definitely starting to feel that distance for sure. So I'm gonna make a trip home next summer, and hopefully, get to enjoy some things that I haven't got to experience when I lived there.
Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. I mean, I left St. John's. I grew up in Mount Pearl. That's where I went to school. But I left St. John's with the band with Bucket Truck in '99. That's when it started cooking for us, and that's when we moved to Halifax for a little while. So I've been away from home for a very long time. I live most of the time in Toronto now for the past 16, 17 years, but I've been spending a lot more time at home since COVID. And I have been getting to know it a little bit better at this stage of my life because I didn't appreciate it the same way when I was a kid, and I was like, I got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. But I definitely appreciate it in a different way now.
Yeah, like I mean, I moved away and went back. Like I moved to Halifax, did school, did my audio engineering and stuff, and then came back and did the downtown thing, and hung out in bands and whatever, and then moved up here. So like I've been away from, but like I found this time though it's a little bit different. Like Halifax is a little close. You don't feel like you're far away. But I found like the last time I went home was like for a real vacation was like 5 years ago. It's almost 6 years ago now, and yeah, like I was like, oh shit, I forgot how fucking beautiful this place is and how nice people are and how different the atmosphere is. And
yeah, it's special, man. St. John's is special. And I have been literally I've been very lucky, like the different sort of career paths I've taken have brought me like all over the world. And even though I'm from home and I'm a little bit biased, like there is something really special about it, and the way that Newfoundlanders gravitate to each other, and the way that Newfoundlanders have pride in Newfoundland. Like it's different. You don't like, I see it a little bit with, it's an island thing. Like I've met people from Jamaica who are the same way. Yeah. It's a little bit like it in New York, but Newfoundland is unique, man. It's unique in many ways, and in that way, for sure.
Yeah, and I love it. Like I'm a proud Newfoundlander kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? And so, but I don't know. I'm interested to retire and could probably go back. Like I don't know if I'll be back before that, but that's what I'll be doing.
How close are you to retiring? Is it because of the money you're making on the podcast?
Of course. I mean, we're very rich and famous around here. Of course. No, when I'm like 85, when I can finally retire, I'll probably retire in Newfoundland.
Go back for a good couple of years.
At least get a year out of it anyway, or so. You never know. But yeah, no, my parents still, like, they own a cabin. They're moving out of there as well. Like they're probably going to move to Nova Scotia at some point here. They got their house kind of for sale, but they're going to keep the cabin. Like, so we're going to live in the summertime and stuff. So like, there's still a reason to go home, and like the cabin is beautiful, of course, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll go home. But yeah, I miss certain things about it. But it's mostly like family related or place related. The rest of it is here and over there.
Yeah, not the weather.
No, although to be fair, it's been freaking beautiful there apparently since like I've left there. The weather's changed right around.
Yeah, global warming is definitely hitting Newfoundland as well. There's no doubt about it.
It definitely is. Yeah, it's doing something good for them. It's crazy. Like if you talk to mom, it's like, oh, I got up this morning. Like it's snowing. Like it's snowing right now. It's like minus 10 or whatever. And I'll be like, oh, what are you doing? She'll be like, oh, I was just out painting the patio. Like, cool. Yeah. The perks of living in the north.
Yeah, but we all seem like we're in a rush to leave the island at such a young age. I don't know what it is. I think we feel like we're excluded or just isolated away from the whole rest of the world, right? Everyone wants to move away as soon as they graduate high school and stuff like that. So when did you get to Halifax and make that move? What year was
that? It was 99. I think it was 99 we went. So I was going to university. I was going to MUN. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started singing in this band out of high school with a couple of the guys who ended up being in Trim Naval Beef. You remember that band from St. John's?
I know the name. I know that name.
They were very cool. It's kind of like the Beastie Boys. Like they were all like Newfoundland, version of the Beastie Boys. But all really good musicians. Anyway, I went to high school with those guys, but then I just randomly one day was looking. I was supposed to be studying for an exam at MUN. I didn't want to be at MUN. I didn't want to be there. I knew that, and I was reading through the Evening Telegram in St. John's. It's something I'd never done before. I haven't done since. Like the whole thing, and I was reading through the classifieds, and there was an ad. There was a small ad like this size, and it said. Band looking for a singer, and it had influences were Red Hot Chili Peppers, Glue Leg, Boys Against Girls. I was like, that's cool. So I called the number, and ended up being the guys in Bucket Truck. They had a band. They had a band happening. They didn't have a singer, and I dropped a demo tape off of my high school band, and that was it. I started recording with them, and that's how I met them. Didn't know them before then. Now they're like all my closest friends. And things started cooking for us pretty quick. So the long-winded answer to your question is around 99, we decided to move to Halifax because for anybody who is from Newfoundland or been there, they know it's not an easy island to get off of. Like if you're not flying. Even when you're flying, it's a pain in the ass sometimes if it's foggy. So we just decided that we were going to go to Halifax because it would be easier for us to get to the larger centers to tour, because we started to get a little taste of it at home. Like we were opening for bigger bands. We did this big Somersault Festival. Yeah. Our Lady Peace had put us on the Somersault Festival, and we had a video getting played on Much Music. So, I was, barely 20 years old, and I'm I left and I moved with these guys, and we just started playing shows around Halifax. And I never looked back, really. I mean, I thought that I was going to be singing in that band for the rest of my life. Like, I thought that's what I was going to be doing.
And you do at that point too. You don't have any foresight, even like, can you do this when you're 65? But you know what I mean. You think you will, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, zero thought of that. It was just we were pushing so hard,
yeah,
and it just was all moving so quickly, and these opportunities were coming. That you couldn't see yourself doing anything else.
Yeah.
Like, it was always get to the next milestone. Like, we made a record. Can we get a record deal? Can we get an agent? Can we, there's this big festival coming to Halifax. Can we get on that? Oh, it's also going to Toronto. Can we get on that? And you just kept pushing and pushing and pushing for the next thing, right? And then before you know it, 3 years had passed. And you're just like jumping in a van, barely making enough money, but it was so much fun. And we loved the music so much that you'd never, the times when it got shitty were never so bad that the awesome times didn't wash it away, you know?
Yeah.
So we could have 8 months when we were broke and we felt like it wasn't going to happen. And then we had 2 months when we had a really good tour, and we ended up like supporting big bands along the way. And then all of a sudden our video's getting played and we get an interview on Much Music. And then it's like, oh, well, it's happening. Those other 8 months didn't matter. Yeah. This month and a half is how it's always going to be. You know, it's just that blind kind of love of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I've got no regrets about it. You know, like it was glorious, truly glorious.
Yeah. Some of those harsh times when you're, loading the van up in ankle deep snow, and you're kind of frustrated about little things like that. Those are the things that you look back fondly on, I think, with old friends, especially, like,
yeah,
those,
for sure.
Just every single day together, traveling together, those memories kind of, even though they kind of suck at the time, you look back on them fondly because, that's just a bond that, 4 or 5 people have together. Right.
Yeah. And I tell you what else, aside from the nostalgia of it, it built me. Like, being in an independent, like, punk rock band built me. So it's the reason I was able to survive through these other industries. It's the reason I was able to say, well, I can make an independent movie. I'm okay with the rejection of being an actor. Like, I've been through all that rejection. By the time I was 22, I had seen so much, man. I've heard no so many times, and just the piss and vinegar that was needed to make a band like ours work, because we weren't a very accessible band. Like, our music was not accessible. It was not radio friendly at all. And we really had to fight for every opportunity. And it's sort of a marvel that we lasted as long as we did, being so niche, but it's because we worked so hard. So it was that time with those guys and the resilience I learned from that time and then that built me helped me with my career now, helped me as a parent. I'm sort of sad that it doesn't really exist the same way anymore for bands just jumping in a van and doing it. Now they're like, maybe you can get 1 million TikTok streams or whatever it might be, or you do a cover, and I'm not dogging that. That's, times change, shit happens. Yeah. But I feel bad that way of living for a musician doesn't exist anymore, because it meant so much to me.
Yeah.
And it's not because we were super successful. It's because of the shit we went through, I learned way more in that 10 years in that band than I ever learned in university, or I ever would have learned in university.
Yeah.
I learned life in
real world
10 years, and it prepared me for everything else.
For sure. Playing to 5 people in the middle of December, fucking freezing, and watching a guy play the WAPs, and trying to make a show of it. It definitely makes you appreciate when you get the big show kind of thing. You know what I mean? Or even you get these smaller breaks. Like it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we kind of knew a lot about you growing up and stuff like that. So it was sick to see you guys get on like what you're talking about, basically. Like that success. Like see it on Much Music, see the videos being played, and then see like interviews. Because it's one thing to see you like to see the video kind of thing, because there's you know what I mean, like there's a ton of videos kind of thing, but then to see an interview, like stuff like that, I was like, holy shit, man, boys are like, and we felt the same way. Like, holy shit, the boys are making it, right? Like, this is sick.
Yeah, and I felt that way when I would see like the guys from Great Big Sea on Much Music, like before Bucket Truck ever happened, when I was just living in Mount Pearl and watching Much Music, and I'd see the guys from Great Big Sea, I'd be like, oh my God, they're doing it. And this was even before they really, really blew up. And I remember seeing on Much Music like Hardship Post, and going, Hardship Post, they're from Newfoundland, they're on Much Music, you know what I mean? Or Thomas Trio, like
Thomas Trio.
Yeah. So it was like, obviously Much Music was such for that era and for bands, like it was the thing. It was like, can we make that work for us? Can we get on there? And somehow, luckily, we did.
Yeah, that was the world's social media in a sense, right? So to be on that, you were exposed to millions of people nationwide, and I think that's kind of the goal everyone had in those late 90s, early 2000s. Like that's kind of it, right? Like you want to be featured and have a spot on Much Music, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that was it, man. I tell you how it happened for us. I remember when I would watch Much Music, and at the end of a show, I'd watch the credits for the names who would come up, and I figured out that the names that would appear at the end were the most important names. And those names at that time were Denise Donlin and David Kynes.
Yes.
So this was also a time where they were accessible. So I would just find, I don't know how I found it, but I would find the Much Music phone number for the front desk. Now, many years later, when I worked there, I could piece it together. I was like, oh, they probably answered the phone there, But I called. Guys, I swear, I shit you not, I did this when I was working at Thrifty's in the Avalon Mall. So from Thrifty's in the Avalon Mall, behind the counter, when I'm supposed to be working, with my mom's phone card, I phoned Much Music, and front desk answered, and I asked for Denise Donlin, and they put me through.
Wow.
Now, usually it would just be, I'd get a voicemail, but I would always wait. I kept doing it, and one day she answered. Wow. And I went, oh. I said, hi, Denise. I said, yes. And I told her who I was. I said, my name is Matt Wells. I'm in a band called Bucket Truck from Newfoundland. And we were just about to play shows with Our Lady Peace at home.
Right.
And I would notice that they had these Molson Canadian Rocks concert listings on Much Music. Mm-hmm. And it would say, Molson Canadian Rocks, Our Lady Peace in St. John's in September or something. And I used to think, well, how come it doesn't say with Bucket Truck?
Yeah.
So that's what I asked Denise Donlin.
No way.
And
that's
she
awesome.
said, and I remember she said something like, wait a minute, that's why you're calling? I said, yeah, I want to get our name there. And she said, do you have a video? I said, yeah, we do. And it was a bad one, but we had a video. She says, have you sent it here? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to put it in rotation.
Wow.
What?
And she did. And the video sucked, but she did it because I called, because she was like, that's the type, she was punk rock. She was like, who the fuck is this kid?
Wow.
And they started playing the video, and then we were sort of in there. So then we made a better video. I'm like, oh, there's these kids again. And they played it again. So when I met her many years later and told her, and she put two and two together, like when I started working there, it was very cool. But you had to do that shit. Wow. Like back then, like, you had to. You had to try to stand out, especially being from Newfoundland.
Yes.
We barely had concerts coming out there. So every opportunity, and then, Much Music was like, this is a way that this band can exist outside of this island, right? And then because of that phone call and you know, a lot of others, the stars aligning, it just started to cook a little bit. And then we'd make another video, they'd play it, we'd make another video, they'd play it a little bit more. And that was it, man. That was sort of our lifeline for a little while, because when we go to play a show in Edmonton or go to play a show in Toronto, these people would have seen us on Much Music and they came to the shows.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
wicked. That's crazy. Eh?
Yeah, that's that punk rock, like you said, right? You found the phone number, you found the name just from the credits, ending credits, to finding the phone number, to calling and calling over and over again. You know what I mean? You made it happen.
Yeah, man. And honestly, you know, I love punk and hardcore music. You know, I love a lot of those bands like Minor Threat, Black Flag, you know, Gorilla Biscuits, these bands. But honestly, what I got more from those bands was the ethos of it. Like, I like the music, but more important to me was the do-it-yourself, independent-minded bands like Discord Records and all these things that were like, fuck the record labels, they're not doing anything for us, we're going to make it happen on our own. And they created these movements, right? It was that ethos that connected with me, like positive mental attitude, don't give up, do it yourself, fuck the man, fuck anybody who says no. And that is what built me. That's what I was talking about earlier. And that's what I teach my kids. Like, it's just that, like, look, no one's going to do anything for you. And if you love it, you just got to punk rock the shit out of it. And again, that's what the time in Bucket Truck taught me, and what those guys taught me, because I didn't listen to punk and hardcore when I first met them. They gave that to me. That was a gift that they gave to me. And then that was what I took from it. And we just ran, and then we all went off to do our own things. But every one of those guys would say the same thing, that time shaped us, you know?
Wow.
That's crazy.
What a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's different, like totally different. Like, even like when you said like my mom's phone card, it's like, holy shit, things are so different, man. Like, fuck. So awesome.
But it's that mindset too that must have drove you to, when did you first get the idea, you know, like, you know, that you could be working for Much Music at some point in time?
I never had the idea I could work for Much Music. I never aspired to be on TV, ever. And now it's all what I've been doing for the past 20 years. Like, So when I got to Halifax, I just had this, I was just full of piss and vinegar, right? So I would chase down Mike Campbell, who was the host of Much East and Going Coastal. Because that's where we could get the most airplay, right? Because we were a band from Newfoundland and we were making some noise, and that's what the show was made for. So in like 2001, 2002, and I'm freshly moved to Halifax, working at TGI Fridays in the casino. That's how I was supplementing going on tour. And our videos were getting played on the TVs above the bar while I was serving people.
Okay, that's me. And the guy at the bar is like, fuck off.
A couple of times, people I was serving would be there, and they go, is that you? And I'd have like a hat on with suspenders and pins. And I go, yeah, it's me. Wow. So I was working at TGI Fridays, and Mike Campbell, who at the time was probably like pushing 50 already, but him and Terry David Mulligan were still hosting Much East, Much West. Got changed, turned into Going Coastal. Then I start hearing that Campbell is leaving. He's being pushed out, essentially. They want a younger voice and a younger face to host the show. And unbeknownst to me, he takes 5 weeks vacation because they own 5 weeks. And he's like, I'm taking these 5 weeks. And he needed a guest host to fill in. So he said to me, he's like, you should fill in for me while I'm gone. I was like, okay. He wasn't going to pay me or anything, but I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was show up with his camera assistant and interview a band and do some funny shit. And I didn't care because it was just promotion for Bucket Truck.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he was like grooming me for the show. He wanted me to take over. And when the time came, they did like a VJ search in Halifax. And I got a call from one of the producers who said, hey, we love what you're doing. Would you come out to this VJ search we're doing? And I don't know where I had the balls for this, but I was like, I'm not going to a VJ search. I was like, I'm in a band here. He's like, yeah, we know about your band. I was like, but I can't stand in line. Like, people who like our band will think I'm a sellout. Like, I can't do that. And the guy was like, oh, like the gall of me, right?
Yeah.
And then he said, well, would you come at the end of the day when everything's done? I was like, okay, as long as there's nobody there. Again, I was not even thinking, like, he could have told me to go fuck myself, really, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, is it okay I'm cursing?
You can say
yeah,
whatever you
love
want.
it.
Yeah, go nuts.
We love it.
Sorry, Mom, in case you listen.
Yeah, she'll be listening.
So anyway, I went at the end of the day, and they had seen, 200 people, and they took me outside the hotel, put a camera on me, and said, "Okay, just do a throw to a video." And I had been doing it as guest host for Campbell, and I'd watch Going Coastal every week, right? So I just remember, and I said, "Oh, okay." No, I said, "What's a throw?" And he said, "Well, you're just introducing the show." I was like, oh, "Okay." And then I said something like, "Hey, what's up? My name is Matt Wells. You're watching Going Coastal. Coming up, we got interview with Joel Plaskett, Classified, Burnt Black, and first here's a video from, I don't know, like Zucker Baby or so, whatever I said." And I just remember the guy, and it was perfect. Whatever it did was perfect, because I just was like copying what I'd seen on TV.
Yeah.
I just remember he took the camera away. He's like, "Okay, that's great." I was like, "All right." And I left, and 2 weeks later, they offered me a job.
That's sick.
So
That's so good.
I never wanted it. I never aspired to have it. It was Mike Campbell really went to bat for me and pushed for me to get this job. And it changed my life, completely changed my life.
That's awesome. Like, really though,
Yeah. And I mean, like, at the time, I don't know what it was like to everybody. Like, I know I watched Going Coastal a lot, and like, I know Mike Campbell was like a super reputable person in the industry, kind of thing, right? You so like to see, to hit him kind of, pulling out for you, and be like, hey, you should try this. At least try it. You know what I mean? It didn't tell you have to do this, but you should try it. And it worked out like good for him. And that's a cool story. I didn't know that, because I kind of forgot that you took over right after him. Like, I kind of, I didn't put that all together.
It was weird, man. Like, so the way that job worked is that there was no office. There's no Much Music office in Halifax. Like, your house was your office. So Campbell was working out of his house. He had this like office built in his garden, like a tiki lounge.
Wow.
And it's pretty famous now. It's called Campbell's Tiki Bar. So any band like you can imagine, has partied at that. Like, it's famous. It's Canadian famous.
Nice.
And that's where he had his office. So one day I had to go there and take his Betacams and take the Much Music truck from him and drive away.
That's wicked.
It was
crazy.
It was heartbreaking, because he'd been with Much Music since the day it started.
Yeah.
And that was it. So, but he taught me everything I knew. He showed me how to work a Betacam, because I was also a videographer back in the day. Like, I had to take a big Betacam, and I wasn't trained in that. I didn't know how to use it. He showed me it's just like when you pick up guitar, like, you only need 3 chords, you're fine. It was like it's like that. So I took the Betacam. I started learning how to do that, and there I was. I was a videographer. I was an interviewer. I was filming the bands. And because he thought I could do it, but he knew, because I was a musician, because I actually cared, and specifically cared about that region of Canada, and I was so tapped into that world because of my work in Bucket Truck, he knew that I would do right by it. And it was a lot of pressure, because I knew how important that show was to East Coast artists and independent artists, because it would also be like if Moneen or Alexis on Fire were coming out, we would put them on the show. It was an important vehicle for independent bands. Like, I remember doing one of the first big interviews with Classified, with Feist. It was, and Matt Mays, when he was just coming out of the, forgetting the name of his band that he had before he was solo, the Guthries.
Guthries, yeah.
And So it was an important show, and I understood how important it was. And Campbell knew I would take it seriously, and I did. I took it very seriously, and made sure that I covered it the best I could, and put everybody on there. And then, after I think 4 years, they asked me to move to Toronto. They liked what I was doing, and then I moved to Toronto, and that was it. I worked there out of 299, right out of the mothership for another like 7 years.
Wow,
crazy. Because did you go from there to much more music? Is that where you went?
Yeah, so that's where they put me. So I became like the host on Much More Music, but I was still being utilized at Much Music and like CTV, because I was I became the interview guy. So I would get all the big interviews, even if it was for the new music. Like they'd fly me to like London, England to interview Coldplay, and that would air on Much Music or Much More, but primarily it would be for the new music. So I just became this guy. So, technically I was on Much More. That's where they were paying me as the host of Much More, but there was a family of channels, and I became a guy who was on all of them. But I was like Matt Wells of Much More Music.
That's crazy. I thought that too, because I was going to say, I know I've seen you do other interviews like on other shows and stuff like that. I was going to ask you about that, but that's interesting too, how that worked too. So you just, you have to do everything.
So they would put me on E-Talk, or like for a while I was doing, Bravo used to have this show live at the concert hall where they have a live band perform and be live interviews. So I started hosting that. Then CTV bought MTV Canada, and MTV Canada came over. Then I started hosting like a show called Movie Night. So I was sort of like all around. Like it was pretty rad, man. Like certainly for a guy who never aspired to be on TV, and I dropped out of university to tour in a band.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I was, in the building watching things go down the way I'd watched them on my TV living in Mount Pearl. Looking at the names, the credits come up, just figure out how can I get my name on the most Canadian concert listings.
How can I get my band to be actually advertised here? What the hell?
And definitely, shout out to Mike Campbell for seeing that potential in you, and then for you for taking that ball and running, for having such a great career and being so versatile and being able to adapt and learn kind of on the fly pretty much, right?
Yeah, I learned from people around me. I learned from watching the other hosts and VJs. I learned from producers. You just, that's the only way that's the only way to really get better at anything, right? Like look around at the people who are better than you and soak it all in, whether you're an artist, whatever you do, right? There's these people who did it before me. So, yes, shout out to Mike Campbell, who I'm still in touch with to this day. Like he's a very important person in my life. He's a good man, and he's such a music guy. Like he still loves music and supports music, and it literally changed my life.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So going back now, like going back to living home and stuff. So what's like when you were first coming? So like you said, like you weren't really into like the punk hardcore scene originally or whatever. What were you into in high school kind of thing? Like say like pre-Bucket Truck, first high school band kind of thing. Like take us back there a little bit. I'm interested in that now.
Well, I was definitely, caught up in what was coming out of Seattle, like everybody was, like that, Soundgarden and Nirvana and Alice in Chains. Like this was affecting me in a way that now with hindsight, I can see that, that really was doing something. But honestly, I have always been kind of like old school. Like I was listening to like Frank Sinatra and Harry Connick Jr. and Simon and Garfunkel and Willie Nelson. That's honestly, Harry Connick Jr. is what I was listening to the most through high school.
Oh,
but it was always, I think I'm just a music guy. Like I hear a song and I like it. Doesn't really matter what the genre was. But to answer your question, in high school, like I even remember in grade 12, like we had a karaoke machine for like Frosty Festival or something. And I I sang a Harry Connick Jr. song.
That's wicked. Doing a little bit of Cronin. That's excellent.
Yeah, like I was way into that. Like I did love Sinatra. I did love big band stuff. I still do to this day. But it was to be fair, Bucket Truck really evolved when like the guys kind of knew each other, but they were still getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, like everything, like the first record we did was sort of weird. It was a mishmash. It was kind of like the Chili Peppers, a little Jane's Addiction-y. It wasn't like the way we ended. And then we all sort of gravitated around this band called Quicksand, who we all loved. And that sort of post-hardcore sound where it was melodic but heavy. And we all sort of went in that direction, and we all started going, oh, this is what we like. And then we started listening to the Refused record, The Shape of Punk to Come. Right. And that was like this interesting, loud, melodic, but still socially and politically conscious lyrics. Like that was what was driving us.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting evolution with these guys because we all brought something very different. And it made for a very weird sound. Like Bucket Truck was weird. We're a very weird band, and it's not easy. Like we got together to play a show 2 summers ago, I guess. We got asked to open for Alexis on Fire at Iceberg Alley in St. John's.
Yes. Yeah.
And we hadn't played a show together in 15 years, and we were reluctant to do it because the music was not easy.
Yeah,
right.
Like the riffs are intricate. And the timing is weird, and it's not something you can just pick up and do. And we really were a good live band. Like that's the thing that really drove us. Like people would see us live and they just couldn't deny it. And I didn't want to do it unless we were that good again. But after 15 years, I was like, can we? But honestly, it was the best we'd ever performed.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. Like we walked off the stage and kind of looked at each other like, man, maybe we should have kept doing it.
Yeah. It feels good. Yeah,
feels good. That's my good.
Right, and like you said, yeah, you're not playing those songs that just have G, C, and D in it. You gotta really know what you're doing.
Go for it, yeah. Going for it.
Yeah,
and you gotta go for it too. It's that type of music, like especially on vocals. Like, I mean, your vocal style is very much going for it. It's very much a 25-year-old man's game kind of thing. But you gotta go for it, right?
Yeah, for sure. But it was cool, man. And I do. I've certainly since we did that show, the Iceberg Alley show. But I find that there's this very weird resurgence in interest in Bucket Truck lately, and I have a lot of people reaching out and asking about the band. And you can't really find a lot of our stuff. Like I never really did a good job of getting the videos up on YouTube. I think some of them are there, or even getting the music up on streaming platforms. But the last record we did. We recorded it with the same producers who did The Shape of Punk to Come by Refused. We went to Sweden and recorded with them.
Oh,
did you record in the bunker?
What's the bunker?
Was it Refused? Like they recorded that in this weird, like Cold War bunker or something like that? Is that where they recorded that thing? I'm pretty sure, yeah. Because I know there's like live stuff mixed in there and stuff in that album too. But I know like a lot of the track, like this, it was done in this weird bunker, and I think that was kind of like part of the weird hostileness of that album.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That sounds familiar to me now. No, we did it right in the house of this guy, Pelle Henriksen. And he was the guy who would produce The Shape of Punk to Come, and that's why we did it. And we went he lives in a town called Umeå, Sweden, which is 7 hours north of Stockholm. And we lived there for a month in an apartment. And we recorded, in fact, we brought him and his assistant to Newfoundland, and we rented an old abandoned elementary school in Pooch Cove, which is now like some sort of arts commune.
Sick.
And it was overlooking like a cemetery. And apparently this place was haunted, we were told, but we were the first ones to use it after it being a school. It was being in middle of construction. And we lived there for 3 weeks. We slept in the classrooms, and we did all the bed tracks.
Really?
And then we went to Umeå and did the vocals and all the overdubs. But anyway, point is that record, I had revisited in the past couple of years because we had to relearn them for the show. And then I've had people asking me about it and want to talk about the band. And I'm still really proud of that record, man. Like we made it, broke the bank trying to make it, and then it's kind of broke up like shortly after. The wheels started falling off the band, and then I got the job offer to go to Toronto. But that album is still, I'm very proud of it. Like lyrically, sonically, it's too bad I still got 2,500 copies of it in my basement, but
hey,
I'll take one.
how many boxes do you want? Give me your address.
Yeah, send me a box. Give me a box.
I mean, you can always start selling them at the Walmart parking lot.
It's always that. Yeah.
Sell them at the van, you know,
That's
hustling like the old days.
Yeah, man, in the trunk of your car, a couple cases in the van or whatever. Yeah, it's a different world, eh? Like that's the funny part too, right? Like think about that. Like I even so we'll probably have David Bottrell on next couple weeks or whatever. So of course go dig out a couple of. I was like, well, I'll dig out some albums. I was like, well, I'm not gonna listen to them on Spotify. I want to like go dig out the albums. So of course, I go out to my CD spindle. I still got one of those kicking around with like 100 CDs in it, probably or whatever. And I dug them out or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, what am I doing? But I can't get rid of these things. Like I love my
physical media.
Yeah, I don't want everything on physical media, but I still like what I have, I guess, or whatever.
I got my son into collecting VHS tapes with me.
Hey, I'm into that as well. That's my favorite thing, probably.
Yeah, we got boxes of them. We're just waiting to figure out a way we can display them. But I would start going to a Value Village every time I would be in another city, like filming a show or something.
Yeah. Right.
Put them on FaceTime. Like, do we have this one? Do we have this one? And sometimes we hit a jackpot. Like I remember one day I walked into a Value Village and I found First Blood on VHS.
Wow.
I was like, what? Why does someone give this up? And I found like Death Wish 2 on VHS. You know what I mean?
Jesus. Yeah, I love VHS.
A couple of VHS are here.
Yeah, there you go.
Old slap shot, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, The Crow.
Classic.
Yeah. Like, I don't know what it is, but
I don't know. I love them,
something about, you know, it's this nostalgic feeling, I guess. Like, I think it's the holding it in your hand. The cover art is always so cool, and like reading the back.
Yeah, it's like going to the rental store, right? Going to the corner store or whatever your place, you know, whatever it was. Every place rented movies back in the old times for the younger generation listening. But yeah, like it's not like standing there, like seeing, like, you know, it's almost like posters. You know what I mean? Like it's a full wall of these cool artworks, and like depending on the types of movies, like I mean, I'm like into horror movies, so like some of those have some sick covers, and like old B-rate horror movies have the best covers ever. Right.
Yeah, man. So, that's how I used to. That's how sometimes I would pick out movies, and I sort of do that with books now. Like I'll go into a bookstore and I'll wait for something to grab me, and I'll look at the covers of them. But during COVID, this is how my son got addicted to the VHS. We were just stuck in the house, and I had some old VHS in the basement, so I hooked up a VCR to the TV in his room, and I popped in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh shit!
And it was like, it had, that sort of old, like the lines would come up, like the shitty VHS. And he was like mesmerized. And he was, oh, this is so cool. And that was it. He I ruined him in a very good way. And like, he's now such a little cinephile, and he's like a purist.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna get to experience some things that most people his age will probably never get to experience, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're watching, I won't say I'll say newer films, but like, later in VHS life, like a lot of those movies now have gotten reissues or, like redos essentially. Like they got brand new effects, and you know what I mean? Like, so I have a copy of one that blew me away, to be funny, is Toy Story. So I have a copy of the original Toy Story. I mean, that came in 95 or 96 or something like that?
Yeah.
Like really early. And I popped it in not long ago. And of course I watched it recently with my little kid, the new version, like, the HD version or whatever bullshit. And then I popped this thing in, and like the rendering is like 5 feet away. There's nothing like it's like there's no texture to anything. Like I'm like, holy shit, they must have redone this movie like 20 times since it came out, because I've never seen it look like, or I can't remember it even looking like this or whatever. But yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I still love watching the VHS tapes. It's just, it is nostalgic for me, but there is It's the same with vinyl, you know. I mean, I know it sounds so cliche to say, but there's just something about the snap, crackle, pop of that sound when you drop the needle.
Yeah.
It just works for me, man. It just works for me.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the good old days. Big old record player in the living room, big honking record player and shit like that, right? Walking up to your dad's record collection or whatever, or looking through your uncle's record collection kind of thing and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's something about holding stuff, but you don't do that anymore. Like it's, and I mean, you get all these like kind of special, you know, one-offs. Like people are doing a lot of cassette tapes. I've noticed is kind of like the new cool thing to do or whatever. So like I noticed that like it's kind of,
fuck are they gonna play them?
Well, this is just it. So like that's the other thing. Like so like I really got off of that because at one point I was kind of on the cassette thing, but like kind of got away because it's like, man, you got to get belts and there's a lot of maintenance required with all this bullshit. So it's like I don't really, I don't have time for all this stuff amongst everything else. So I kind of gave it up, but like I kind of regret it because I had some nice gear. But yeah, that stuff's all coming back now. I guess it's more like to put it up on the on the shelf or whatever. But yeah, it's cool. I'm glad that stuff's coming back, but I wish it would be a bit more in demand kind of thing, because then you would get new cassette players and shit like that.
Yeah, it's coming back in a way that's nostalgic to people who weren't around for that. Because when we think about it, like name your podcast, and the year was 1985, right? So 1985 was what, 40 years ago?
Sure was. Yeah. Or 39,
almost.
Matt. 39
and change.
So 39 years ago, right? Let's just round it up for math's sake, okay?
Yeah.
So think about 1985. 40 years before that was 1945.
Yeah.
So there's some kids now who, like, 1985 is as far away to them as 1945 was to us in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
That is crazy when you look at it like that.
Yeah. Well, like, and like the most of the stuff that we grew up on, like say in our teenage, early 20s, was as far away as the 60s, right? So now, and then like that's, that age group is as far away from us as we were from the 60s. So that's why it's nostalgic again. It's that like 35-year cycle kind of thing, right? Like you get 35 years out and then you get 10-year window where that stuff's cool. And then it goes away again, right? Like we're like early 2002 at this point, I think. Again, you know what I mean? Like that stuff has kind of become popular. Like, I mean, the big resurgence in new metal and stuff. And I think that's probably why you're getting a bit of action on Bucket Truck, because that stuff, it fits in that category to a certain degree, right? And
sure. And the sort of the popularity that started to happen for us in 2001, 2002 had a lot to do with the fact that Limp Bizkit was happening, System of a Down was happening. There was just these heavier bands were popular. Like there was a time there for 2 or 3 years when the number one album in Canada was Tool. The number one album in Canada was System of a Down. So that definitely helped us because we became like, oh, there's a heavy band in Atlantic Canada too. And it's these Bucket Truck guys. So then we started getting put on all the shows because of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
So you're on. You had your time at Much Music. Did you ever think from there, like, when did film ever start?
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, it's because like it's a very strange path because I never really aspired to do any of it, right? But what happened? I will preface it by saying that when I was in high school and the same time that Nirvana was hitting me and Soundgarden was hitting me, I saw Pulp Fiction. And Pulp Fiction did something to me as well. It was the first time I started paying attention to dialogue. And I would go to school, and because I had the soundtrack, and I don't know if you remember the Pulp Fiction soundtrack, but it would be like a banging song and then dialogue from the movie. And I would want to recite the dialogue, like Royale with cheese monologue, whatever. And I would get my friends in class to do it with me. They'd be like, oh, Jesus, here goes Wells again. At the time, I just thought it was cool. But now in hindsight, I realized that there was something bubbling there, right? So at Much Music and Much More Music, they started sending me out to cover like the Toronto International Film Festival, or when someone was promoting a movie, it wasn't just an album, they're promoting a movie. So these actors and directors would come through the building and I would interview them. And then I was hosting this show called MTV Movie Night. It was a movie show. And all of a sudden I was going out watching movies. So my day would be, I'd show up at 299 Queen Street. I'd check my email. I might have to interview a musician that day. Then I'd get to go watch a movie. And then whatever that movie was, I'd be interviewing the director or the actor, whatever. As this was happening, I was looking at movies in a different way, and I was thinking about them in a different way. And then my interviews started to become like a masterclass. Like all of a sudden, I was like asking questions to Zack Snyder and Quentin Tarantino and Claire Danes and Ben Kingsley and Jeff Goldblum. And I realized, I was like, oh, I think there's something to this that I like. So then I started taking acting classes while I was still a host. And I would start then going down the rabbit hole on YouTube of watching interviews while I was researching of these actors. And I hear them talk about like Meisner or Stanislavski and all these acting coaches and these famous acting people from the past. I'm like, who are they talking about? I got to learn about this. So then I would buy the books. Then I felt like, oh, I kind of think this is what I want to do. And then as my time at Much Music was winding down, I got an agent. I started auditioning, and that's it. So, I left Much Music 9 years ago, which is insane just to even say. And now for 9 years, I've just been, acting and writing. But, when you look back on your path, like none of that would have happened unless I was working at Much Music and had access to these actors and writers. Like it was my film school, right?
Yeah.
For 2-3 years, I was interviewing the biggest names in film and television. And it was my acting school, my film school. But that never would have happened if Mike Campbell didn't give me the chance. That never would have happened if I didn't answer the ad in the paper to join Bucket Truck, right? So it's weird. It's a weird path, but I kind of love it. And because it makes me, I've always had to learn my own technique in a way. Like I'm not going to school. I'm not put in a box. I feel like I have something unique to offer because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Even with interviews, like I didn't know how to do an interview, but it just felt like I got there. So that was it, man. I was interviewing these, and you know what it was? Actually, like, I remember the day when I knew that I was completely switching. I was interviewing, what's the name of Jared Leto's band? 30 Seconds
to Mars.
Yeah, 30 Seconds to Mars. And I was interviewing them for their new album. And I was also like, at the same time now starting to do auditions. Side note, even if I got a role, I would have to ask my boss if I could do the job because I was under contract to Bell Media.
Oh,
and if it wasn't a Bell Media show, they didn't want me to be on the show. So it was weird. It was a weird time. But Jared Leto said to me, we sat down and he goes, "Are you an actor?" And I was like, "Oh, well, yes, I am. I was just starting." He said, "Yeah." I can't remember exactly what he said. I think I posted this on my Instagram or something. And he said something like, "Yeah, because you have all the vain and neurotic qualities of an actor." And I said, "Well, I am." He said, "Yeah." He said, "You look like an actor." He said, "You kind of look like," I think he said, maybe he said Ryan Gosling or something. He said, "You kind of look like this. You ever get that?" Oh, he said, I think he said, "You're like a mix between Matthew McConaughey and Ryan Gosling." I think that's what he said. And I was like, fuck, I'll take it, man. And it became a big part of the interview. And then when the editors put it together, they did this whole thing where it was like, "Oh, yes, I'm an actor." And they put my face, like I screwed up my face and they put it next to these other actors. But Jared Leto wasn't wrong. Like he just kept saying, "I can tell." He's like, "I can tell that you don't want to be doing this. You don't want to ask questions. You want to answer questions about the work you're doing." I said, "Yeah, you're right." He said, "Go be an actor." And I did.
Wow.
That's mad. Wicked. Jared Leto. That's incredible.
He knew it, man. He could just tell. It's just something. Like, he could just look at me. He's like, "This guy's an actor. He spent too much time on his hair today. He's definitely an actor."
He didn't shave properly today.
Yeah.
Come from Jared Leto too, which is another guy is very much in that way, right? Like very funny. He's a funny dude, whatever. Yeah, that's funny. That's wicked. That's an awesome story. I'm a big fan of Jared Leto. To be fair.
Yeah, great compliment. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey, Ryan Gosling hybrid. I would take that as well. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I'll take it. I'm still waiting for those size paychecks, but I'll take it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll take one of those while we're at it.
Yeah. All right. I will.
Yeah. All right.
But no, honestly, like it's just been a very weird ride. And I think that I'm at a point in my life now where certainly there was just the 40th anniversary of Much Music, and there was like a Canada Post and a Much Music stamp.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And they invited me to go down for the launch of it. And it was just a thing where every now and then I'm reminded of this very weird path and how it started with music, punk rock sort of came into my life. And that was the thing that sort of propelled me through. But it was also, in hindsight, I had to realize that I didn't say no to any of these opportunities, even if it didn't seem like, am I going to be an actor? I just sort of went with it. It was all intuition. You know what I mean? And it hasn't been easy. Like, it's a weird life, like trying to be a musician and an actor and all these things, like trying to do things because you feel creative and you want to try to make a living as a creative person is fucking hard.
Yes. Yeah,
you have to love it. But that's what I realized through all those different iterations of my career, that there's just something about creativity and storytelling that ties them all together. And that all goes back to being born in Newfoundland. We come from storytellers. We come from musicians. We come from these people who didn't have anything except themselves around a stove and a kitchen to stay warm through these horrible winters. And that's in our bones and our blood. And without that, I never would have had the courage to do any of it,
Yeah. I think it's the Newfoundland thing too. I think like punk rock and Newfoundland, I think to a certain degree go hand in hand a lot more than people think, because you do, like, especially it's a little bit different now. Like, the world's a little bit bigger and it's a little bit smaller, but it was different growing up, 80s, 90s, early 2000s even, because you didn't have that reach. You couldn't just talk to people. You couldn't, you had to call Much Music and had to phone 30 times before you did anything. Now you just send an email. So like it just, and there's a lot of that even now. Like there's still a huge scene. Everybody's still doing all those things, but everybody's doing it their own way. It seems like back home, like, we know the label's not coming kind of thing. So everybody just does it their own way, and it's wicked. Yeah. And I think that shows through, like, especially, seeing from Bucket Truck to like going coastal, like early to where you are now kind of thing. And I mean, like, you got your film Crown and Anchor going and stuff like this, like to see that, and like, I mean, like I lived in St. John's for a while, so I recognized some of the places. Like, it was really awesome to see. Really good, super flick. Excellent job, by the way. Super, super cool movie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like it was cool to see, and like I think that stuff shows through. Even though, like I say, like the film was excellent. I mean, like, totally didn't. I find, and not to shit on things from Newfoundland, but sometimes things from Newfoundland look like they're from Newfoundland. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's fine, but like I liked that it didn't. I knew it was in Newfoundland, but it wasn't like Newfoundland. Yes. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it very much mirrored the band, honestly. And
yes.
Like I said, the band prepared me, and Mike Rowe, who acted in it as well, he was the drummer in Bucket Truck, and we made that together. And everything we did in the band prepared us to be able to make that. But also, people didn't really understand why a band like Bucket Truck was from Newfoundland. Like I remember I would book us a show in Alberta, and I would call the bar, and I'd say, yeah, we're from Newfoundland. They'd go, oh, great, we'll put you in for the full weekend. And they just assumed we were a trad band. They didn't ask anything. And we'd get out there and we'd do sound check. We're like, what the hell are you playing? And we get fired the first night. So, Bucket Truck was always like, we wore Newfoundland on our sleeves. Like, we used to put Newfoundland flags and logos on our merch and on our album covers, but we were different. And the same with Crown and Anchor. We wanted it to represent, a side of Newfoundland that not everybody saw,
Yeah. Because, like me, I didn't have, not everyone has access to that picturesque kind of landscape or whatever. Sometimes it gets a little grungy or dirty, like in these old homes and people that most people would recognize growing up in, right? So it kind of got to see, kind of felt more real. I find that it came across like that way.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. I mean, that's what we wanted. And, when you see those tourism ads from Newfoundland, like Newfoundland can look like that. Like it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, but there's a darkness to Newfoundland that I kind of love. Yeah. Like they're just, and again, I mean, we could go on for hours and hours about the history of Newfoundland and the people that had to be tough enough to the first ones who could stay on the island without going back in the summer or the winters and just come in the summers. Like they were tough people, Yeah. Newfoundlanders come from tough fisher people. And that's something about Newfoundland that I love, that underdog nature, that punk thing, that's what I love about punk. It's the underdog thing. It's like, we're going to do this anyway. And so you're right. I think it's a very interesting point you make. It's very smart about Newfoundland and punk being connected in some way, and that's what Bucket Truck was to us. That's what Crown and Anchor was to us. And but like I said, it all comes back to Newfoundland for me. Like, because I'm a Newfoundlander, because I was raised there, because I was raised by people who are like salt of the earth, I have that in me, and I aspire to just, like my parents and my grandparents, just work hard for the things that I want, and just not be an asshole. Like, that's all I really want to do in life. Just work hard, love the people who are around you, and don't be an asshole. And you can do that whether you're a plumber or a fisher person or a famous actor or singing in a band. Like, none of that has to change. So that's what I love about Newfoundlanders.
Yeah. Beautiful. Couldn't have said it any better, Like, really though. I mean, this is who we are, and this is the place that raised us, and
it shapes you. It's like I say, I think of it as a different country almost. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, moving away from it's like a different country, man. You have no real idea until you get there.
Yeah, I say the same thing to people. My friend Sean McCann from Great Big Sea used to always say, it's like the New Orleans of Canada. Because I don't know if you've ever been to New Orleans, but when you go there, you don't feel like you're in America. Like, you feel like you're in a different place. It's its own culture. It's its own little thing. And that's what Newfoundland is. It's unlike anything else connected to the country.
Yeah, love it. Love it, Matt. Well, my friend, I think we'll leave it there on the beautiful, beautiful word from Matt on Newfoundland. I like that. So that's a good way to end it. But, man, we really appreciate it. Like I say, we've been longtime fans, like I say, from years ago, back in the stadium shows and stuff. And shout out to Damp and the boys. They were the opening band for you guys.
I remember Damp.
Yeah. So they that's our buddies, like this. So that's guys we grew up with, kind of thing. So like playing at the stadium at Bishops and stuff like that. So we've been kind of in your world for a while, and it's cool to see. I mean, you're obviously from Newfoundland. We've seen you coming basically more or less right from the beginning, and then seeing where you are now, and like doing these films and all the time on Much Music, and it's been awesome. It's awesome that you took the time to come talk to us, man.
Man, listen, like I said, I really appreciate you guys thinking of me. I'm always happy to talk about my favorite subject, me.
Love it.
No, just joking. Listen, like I said, I know how hard it is to make a podcast, and you guys are putting your time into it, and our time is valuable. And I appreciate you taking the time to have me here, man. I loved it. Loved every second.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man. Likewise. I can't thank you enough. So, have a great rest of your night, and thanks again for being on the podcast here.
Total pleasure. I'll be listening from now on. I'm glad I found you guys.
Awesome, man.
All right, appreciate it.
All right.
Cheers later, man.